All right. Welcome to Rich Conversations. We are joined by Alice Perez, who's in Houston, Texas right now. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. So excited to be back.
Yeah, we have a lot to catch up with. It's been a
Yeah.
little while.
Yeah. I think it's been like 4 years.
Oh man, it was during COVID when we
Yeah,
recorded.
it was. No, it was.
It was
I
it was
think,
like one of the first Zoom recordings I
was it
did.
really?
Yeah,
That's
because I was
interesting.
doing the podcast and what we would do is go to coffee shops and I had like two mics and then like we would just like do that. But then when the pandemic happened, everything sort of shifted to video and it was like, "Oh, I don't have to be in person to do these. Now I can talk to anyone in the world." And
Amazing.
um I was working on well, we had connected because I wrote Millie Moves to the Farm, a children's book, and then you wrote Vamos a Veracruz. We have a copyright here. This is your first book. You
It
have
is.
another book that's out. It's called In a World We Love, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and so we connected then, and um, I see your we were discussing before this. Your tech savviness hasn't increased over the 4 years.
No, it has not. I am not tech savvy at all whatsoever.
Isn't it crazy, like time and what can happen in 4 years? Like you had mentioned, you
Yes.
have two kids now.
Yes, I have two kids. I have a 3-year-old and I have a 10-month-old who actually just turned 10 months yesterday. So, I mean,
Wow.
it's just wild, but a lot could happen in 4 years for sure.
Does it feel like 4 years? Or does it
Not,
feel,
sometimes it feels like a fever dream, especially with like COVID and everything that happened in
yeah,
between. It just doesn't feel like 4 years. And it's kind of scary if you think about it.
yeah. Um, yeah, I feel like since COVID, my sense of time had gotten warped
Yeah,
and it hasn't really been the same since. And so like it feels like 4 years, but it also feels like 4 weeks ago in a way, and or like 10 years ago. It's
right,
like all,
right.
I don't know if it seems like a long amount of time or a short amount of time. It's really
Yeah,
strange.
yeah, I agree. That's exactly how I feel.
Yeah. So 4 years has gone by. So now that you have children, do you approach writing differently?
I do. I used to have all the time in the world to sit down and, just kind of use writing as an outlet and write whenever I wanted. And now it's a lot different. I only get to write at night after their bedtime. And sometimes it's even like in the middle of the night. If I wake up and I have a thought, I just like jot it down. It's really odd.
Huh.
It's odd, but also it kind of makes sense as a mom. And any mom watching this
Yeah.
would understand. But um, but yeah, and I mean, I do approach it differently in a sense where now also like I think about children's books and I'm like, oh, would my daughter enjoy reading this?
Mm.
Would she enjoy if, her teacher read this to her in class? And so I do see writing a little different now.
Is it as far as the writing and the content, the story itself, do you find it's easier or harder?
I'd say a little bit of both. A
Okay.
little bit of both. It's a good mix.
Okay. What makes it harder?
Harder just because I'm not able to have all the time in the world anymore like I did before. And it's harder to also come up with ideas just because I don't have time to sit around and like not that I was sitting around before, but
Yeah.
I just felt like I just had more time in my hands to kind of just think of different stories and come up with my own ideas, I guess. And now I'm like in mom mode all the time, so I'm always on the go. It's really hard for me to sit down, like I said, and actually put my thoughts into paper. So
Do you ever, with your 3-year-old, does your 3-year-old ever say something to you and you're like, huh? That would be a good idea in the book, you know?
Yes, I actually have a few ideas in mind that I haven't said to anyone, and I do plan on telling people and sharing later on. But I have so much, I just get so much, like, I don't know, like, I guess, like, I get into the thought of or the mind of a 3-year-old when it comes to her,
Yeah.
because there's just things that she kind of just says sometimes. And I'm like, okay, that would be a great children's book.
Huh. So what is your morning like? What's your ideal morning on your best day?
Ideal morning would be me drinking like a shaken espresso in a serene,
Oh,
quiet place, um, relaxing, just minding my business. And but it's typically not how my ideal morning goes with my 3-year-old and my 10
yeah.
month old. It's pretty chaotic. So, um, but ideally, it would be me just, reading a book, just drinking my coffee, something along
Yeah.
the lines of, yeah,
What's a shake and espresso? I've seen that at this
Starbucks.
place I went to the other day. I was like, what is that? I'm picturing like it's like served in a martini glass or something.
It's like it's honestly just a regular espresso, but with other I really don't really know actually, now that I think about it. And it's weird. My bestie, she does coffee, and she sells coffee actually for a living, and I should probably know this, but I don't. I just know that it's a really, really good espresso.
Yeah. Tastes great.
Yeah.
Huh. So you're in Houston right now. What is
Yeah.
like tell me what's the most talked about subject in Houston right now?
So the Astros, going to the playoffs, they could potentially be champions again. So shout out to the Astros for that. Also hurricane season, because all of these sudden storms in the Gulf, that's been kind of a huge thing right now.
Hmm.
But those are, like, I guess, like the two main topics that people are kind of going crazy over right now here in Houston.
What's the sports hierarchy? Do you follow sports much?
I don't. I do like baseball, and I watch a few of like the games here and there because I
Mhm.
mean, they have a great roster.
They've been
I
good now,
they
consistently for
do.
like 10 years.
Yeah, they do. And I mean, I like Bregman, I like Alvarez. Those are a few of my favorites, I guess. But I'm not like so into, like, I'm not gonna watch every single game.
Yeah.
um I think they're playing like the Cleveland, or no, what is it? The Gosh, I can't remember the name right now, but they're playing Cleveland or something like that tonight, or Cleveland, or
Yeah. The playoffs start next week, I believe.
yeah.
When we're recording this, it's late September. So if you're listening to it, and my Brewers are in it too.
Oh, really? Oh, okay.
Yeah. So that'll be exciting.
Yeah.
N- Typically with the Brewers though, they'll make it and then they'll lose in the first two rounds, like always. 2018, they got to the National League Championship and
Yeah.
lost to the was it the Dodgers?
Yeah. Are you a baseball fan?
Yeah, I follow like basketball, baseball, football pretty heavily, I would say.
Nice. Nice.
Um, yeah, it all depends. Yeah, the Astros have been good for a while. That's for
Yeah, they
sure.
have. Yeah. At least for the
Um,
past 4 or 5 years or so, I feel like they've been
what's
pretty good.
the weather typically like in Houston? It's like hot and muggy all the time, right?
Yes. All the time. All the time. Like right now, today, it was beautiful outside. I mean, we thought it was actually kind of cold, and it was like, I'm sure you're gonna laugh. It was like in the 80s, 90s,
Wow.
and we're like, it's kind of chilly outside.
I I don't envy cities in the South
Yeah.
during the summer.
Yeah.
Um, in the Midwest, summer, we enjoy this and we think, oh wow, it's pretty hot down south. Like I saw New
It's
Orleans was like, I don't know, it was in the hundreds.
it's
I was like,
brutal.
whoa.
Yeah, no, it's
Um,
brutal for sure. But
but then in the winter, we're like, oh man, Houston sounds great. Huh. Hurricane. There's a
Yeah.
hurricane going on right now, but it's more by
Yeah.
Florida, right?
Yes, yes. It's more by Florida. We got a hurricane or a tropical storm back in July. But it didn't do much. I mean, it did some damage, not in my area, but it did some damage in Houston. There was a lot of people without power, and stuff like that. I thankfully had power the entire time, which was great, especially with two littles. But but yeah, no, right now there is a major hurricane that's supposed to hit, I think, most of Florida, if anything,
Huh.
which is kind of scary. But
Yeah. Well, changing topics a little bit, we had mentioned the last time was like 4 years, apparently.
it,
That I can't even believe I've been doing the podcast for like 4 years. That's interesting.
yeah, it's awesome.
So what, besides your children, what's been your favorite experience or memory in the last 4 years?
Memory, well, it's crazy. It does revolve or it has to do with them. My crazy experience is becoming a mom, which is one of the things I
Yeah.
know you said. Um, I had a complicated pregnancy with both of my kids.
Mm,
They were both unfortunately in the NICU. So that kind of changed like my whole outlook on life. It was kind of a scary time, but it was quite the experience.
mm,
It changed me for for the better, but I would say I'm really grateful that they're okay and that I'm
yeah.
okay, just because we had a lot of like medical issues going on during that time. Something that I wouldn't even think about 4 years ago. I was just
Yeah.
living my life, you know, and didn't think that could happen to me. I had a good friend that actually something similar happened to her, and not once did I ever think, oh yeah, that could happen to me. I could be
Mm,
hospitalized for almost a month and a half, and didn't think about that. But
wow.
yeah, I'm really grateful to be here.
Wow. Yeah. So that's a great attitude to have. So you've had a lot of favorite memories because
Yeah.
you approach every day as kind of a, yeah.
Almost as a second chance, I guess. It's weird. Like I said, I was hospitalized. Every woman, of course, is hospitalized after giving birth, but I just didn't think I would be hospitalized for that long after giving birth, as opposed to like your typical stay after delivering a baby. Um, so that was quite interesting.
So you're in the hospital for a month and a half?
Yeah, so I was in the hospital for 3 weeks.
Okay.
My daughter was in the hospital for about 4 weeks or so in the NICU. And my son, just most recently, back in December of 23, he was born also prematurely due to my preeclampsia, and so he was in the hospital for a month and a half. That time around, I was also in the hospital for about 2.5 to 3 weeks myself, recovering from all like the medical issues that I had going on as well. So it was just draining and
Yeah.
exhausting and overall scary. But like I said, I'm super grateful to be here, and it's another chance.
Were you in a lot of pain during those 2 to 3 weeks?
I was and I wasn't. It's weird. Because they would give me a lot of medication, like pain medication, to kind of
Okay.
like numb everything. But I'm a huge chicken when it comes to like getting like blood drawn.
Yeah,
And
same here.
they would come and I mean, just take different blood like every day. They're like, oh, we're gonna try your blood. Oh, we have another test. And it was every single day. I knew that at 4 a.m. they would come, knock on the door, and do their thing. And the first 2 nights, I kind of like, I didn't wanna, I was like fighting
Yeah.
back a little bit. But then it just kind of became like a thing where I would just give them my arm, and even though I was so queasy, and I wanna, I was just like, no, like please, like, but I got over it. Just because I knew that they had to do what they had to do, and yeah, I mean, fun times.
Oh,
It's been crazy.
wow.
Yeah. I could
Oh,
honestly probably sit here and talk about this for days. But
so give me the logistics of you're in the hospital. What do you
yeah,
do during the day?
I was going nuts. I really
You're
was.
going nuts. Okay, yeah.
I really, yeah, no, I was. So my, like I was by myself for the most part. I had friends and family that would come and, visit and stuff like that. But for the most part, I mean, everyone has to go back to work and kind of live their life. Um, so that was its own, problem there. But a lot of reality TV that
Okay.
was that was entertaining. But when I was fed up with that, of course, I had my laptop with me. I was able to write and get a few things just to kind of like distract myself a little. I wouldn't say it was like my favorite place to just pull out my laptop and stop writing, but
Yeah, when when writers are describing their favorite experiences or settings to
yeah.
write, it's usually not in a hospital bed. Yeah.
Yeah, you know what's interesting about that? I've talked to a lot of writers that have to have a quiet space and they have to have their own area where they do that. I could do it just about anywhere.
Okay.
Yeah, just because I'm the kind of person that if I get a thought and I just want to write it down, I'll do it on my notes on my phone first and then kind of go from there. And then as soon as I'm home, open up my laptop and kind of transfer it there and kind of just put little notes here and there and then kind of start creating, a story. So
Okay. So yeah, describe to me your process of writing.
of writing,
Yeah.
yeah, like
And
if
are you focused on children's book or just writing in general, journals or
I
stuff like that?
mean, so I've kind of I dove into the world of sci-fi recently. So that's been really fun. I've been working on a novel now for like the past 5 years. I know it
Yes.
sounds, yeah, I mean, I know that sounds crazy because it's 5 years, but I am trying to perfect it. And I am trying to make sure that everything is like, okay, like when the person is reading this, like they're going to be taken into a whole other world. It's going to be a great story. So I'm working in, on that. I've also done some biographies for a few like Houston owners
Okay.
or Houston business owners here in Houston. That's been really fun. But yeah, I'm kind of
Is that like ghostwriting? You ghostwriting?
so not necessarily ghostwriting for the biography. There was a business owner here in Houston who does like cookware and stuff. She reached out to me and said that she wanted a mini biography of her life
Okay.
to give to her children. She didn't want to publish it. She didn't want anything to really come out of it. She just wanted a gift for her kids. And she said, I think you'd be the perfect person to write my
Mm.
biography for me. And so I went ahead and worked with her on that a year ago. And that came out great. I mean, she loved it. Now she's like, yeah, let's publish it. So, I mean, we'll see, right? I mean, I don't really know if I want to go ahead and do biographies, but it was a fun project for sure.
So the sci-fi one,
Yeah.
how many words in are you right now?
I would not be able to even tell you. I don't know. I'm everywhere with it. I'm on chapter 5. I could tell you that much.
Okay.
Yeah. I'm on chapter 5 and I mean, it's been fun. I just there's just some things where I go back and I don't like something in it and I'm like, okay, I have to like change that to something else. I know it sounds weird, but I mean, I'm sure you could probably relate a little, you know.
Yeah, I'm writing fiction. I'm writing a novel right now.
Yeah.
And do you use an outline?
No.
See, that might be an issue. I found once I like had the outline to at least guide me,
Yeah.
it's been helpful.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, it's like definitely helpful. But I like no, I change things up a little bit when I do write. It's more of
Yeah.
I write like scenes.
Oh,
So
cool. Yeah,
um I'm writing scenes that are probably between 400 and like 1200 words each.
that's awesome. Yeah,
Whereas I think a lot of times chapters, it's like one long, big chapter.
yeah,
Mine's kind of skipping around. I don't
yeah,
know.
yeah.
So you said you put the notes on the board and stuff?
Yeah, I'm really scatterbrained. So sometimes like if I get an idea, like for example, like I'll use this as a reference since we were talking about it earlier. But like let's say that my daughter Madeline, like she says something and I'm like, "Oh my gosh, that was such a great idea. I'm going to write it down in my notes, come back to it and see what kind of story I could make out of this," basically.
Yeah. Huh.
It's just my it's always been my way of kind of doing things. It's worked.
But tell me more about in a world, what is it?
In a
A
world
world
we
we
love.
love.
Yeah.
I
So
did not
yeah,
read that one yet. I have read this one.
I
I
need
almost
to
saw
send you
Veracruz.
yeah, no, I need to send you In a World We Love for sure. That so it's interesting because that came out of my fear of the end of the world.
Is this pandemic time?
No, I've actually have always been afraid of the end of the world. Like I
Okay.
terrified, terrified. Um, yeah, so that came from that. And I was like, hmm, I wonder what I could do to try to make kids or kind of guide, kids somehow to kind of be a resource for them. I don't know, and protecting our planet some way so that that doesn't happen. I mean, I know it sounds odd again, but yeah, it really came from my fear of the end of the world. My grandma kind of instilled that fear in me when I was little, which I know it sounds terrible, but she would always talk about it and be like,
Mhm.
"Oh yeah, like the end of the world," and she could probably go on about it for days too, and it kind of just became a fear. So
Did you like write it and now you're over that fear
no.
or no? Huh.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely not over that fear, and yeah, no, it's just been kind of one of those things where it helped a little bit. And I will tell you, when we were going to publish my second book, and my launch for my second book was a little bit different than my first. It was more, I feel like, low key, not as extravagant. There was not a
Yeah.
launch or anything like that. It was more like a soft launch for my second book, and the reason for that was because my illustrator, Yulia, she's from the Ukraine. And
Okay.
when we were going to launch In a World We Love, that was right around the time where the war had begun. So
Mhm.
it was just one of those things where I just didn't feel like it was appropriate for me to be like, let me go ahead and have this huge party here and
Yeah.
celebrate. But she still wanted me to go on and, publish the book and launch the book. So of course, like I went back and forth with my team, and I was just kind of like, you know what, like if she wants that and if she's okay with that, then we're gonna move forward. And if she's not okay with it, then we'll just kind of stay here and see how long we could prolong this.
Yeah.
But yeah, she was like, no, 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 and she knew all about my fear too, and she was kind of like, even more so a reason for you to like,
Yeah.
you know, publish the book and get it out there and have kids, somehow get the message out there of protecting our planet.
So what is it protecting it from? Like what is the
Well, it's just like tips. It's like tips on the environment. It's like it's a very I was thinking of different like short story. It's a very short story.
okay.
It's not anything like Vamos a Veracruz. Vamos a Veracruz is its own entity. I have another book actually coming out in that series very soon here. And it's just, yeah, I feel like In a World We Love is more about like just like protecting the planet.
Yeah.
Um,
So it's
you know,
environmental,
yeah, like
like
giving tips, things like that.
loving Mother Nature.
Right. Yeah. And overall, I feel like it has a good message. So,
Yeah, I think that's important.
yeah.
The message to the children who are
Right.
reading it. Yeah.
Right.
There are some children's books though that have they're just like silly and
Yeah.
weird and make
Yeah.
no sense
Yeah.
and
I
it
agree.
works at the same time.
Yeah.
But if you're probably like me where if you're gonna, write a book, create a book, you want to put a positive message out into the world.
Right. Yeah. And I want it to kind of just mean something too, versus just being, like you said, silly.
Yeah. What's the next one coming out in the Veracruz series?
So I
Is it a different
haven't,
city?
yeah. So I'm doing Rome. And
Oh.
Yulia, my illustrator for In a World We Love, will be able to illustrate this as well. And it's called Let's Go to Rome. It's not in another language or anything like that, but it is going to also do like, some references to like the Italian culture and kind of talking a little bit more on that.
So is that um part of the attraction is like writing stories in
I'm
different
just,
cities
yeah.
around the world?
Yes. Yeah. So when I first came out with Almost a Veracruz, like my whole goal was kind of to get more books that were more diverse out there. I wanted kids to be able to pick up a book and they were like, look, I see, the city where my mom is from or whatnot.
Hmm.
So, because, Veracruz, like that's not a book that I feel like a lot of, it doesn't have, there's not a lot of books on Veracruz. I feel like the city of Veracruz, and if there is, I feel like they're very, kind of just like, oh, like touristy, like this is a city in
Yeah.
Mexico. And I mean, and I know that Vamos a Veracruz, my book is somewhat like that, but it's more, I guess, geared towards kids.
Yeah.
um, and so I just thought it'd be fun to kind of like do something more, in detail about the culture, have some Spanish words in there. Same thing with like Let's Go Rome. I plan on, like I said, putting some Italian words in there. I'm very fascinated with the Italian culture. I'm not Italian or not anything like that. I'm very fascinated and I want to kind of just write a little bit of that and, and kind of, yeah, explore that. So
Yeah, I was gonna ask you, how did you decide on Rome?
I love it. Like I said, I love the Italian culture. So I was like, let's just do a city in Italy. And I mean, I know Rome has a lot of exposure, but I was like, it's a fun city. Like if I'm gonna do a city out there, like I'll do Rome. So
Oh. Have you been to Rome?
no, 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 no.
Yeah, I haven't either. I would love to though.
Yeah, same.
What
Yeah,
kind of Italian, what's your favorite Italian food?
everything. I love calamari. I love
Yeah.
pasta, like the Alfredo pasta. I love spaghetti and meatballs. I love lasagna. I love everything. Like, I mean, you name it. I'm a very carby person. I know
Yeah.
probably carby is not really a word, but I love, love, love to eat pasta.
Oh, I bet it's so good over there.
Yeah, yeah.
I'm
It's
really into
actually
like caprese sandwiches.
Yeah, well, you know what's funny? My friend has visited Chicago a few times, and
Okay.
she said that there's a really good pizza place out there. You might know it. I can't
Which
remember
one?
something.
We got a few good ones.
Yeah, it's something with the G. I cannot remember the name to save my life.
Gino's East.
I think you said it the first time, maybe.
Giordano's, yeah.
Do they take your picture? Like when you,
What's that?
do they take your picture like whenever you go, or is that like a touristy thing?
I don't know.
Oh, okay. Okay. Well, they took her picture wherever it is that she went. They took her picture and I mean, she was happy. I mean, she was like, the food is great, like the service is great. So,
Yeah.
yeah.
So do you have more queued up? Different cities?
Yeah, I mean, I do want to do Peru, but like a city in Peru.
Hmm.
I just don't know which city yet.
Mm.
So, I would like to do Bali as well.
Okay.
Somewhere in Bali. Um, Yeah, those are about the two that I have in mind right now.
That's fun.
Yeah, yeah.
So you have those going on, and then you have the sci-fi novel.
Yes. My sci-fi novel is more about like time travel, um, love.
Nice.
A
Great.
little
Two
bit,
two of my
yeah.
favorite subjects.
Yeah, it's like a little bit of everything really, like mystery, you know. So I think it's like a the way that I like to describe it is like a good like sci-fi disastrous love story.
Nice.
But you know, it'll be fun. I think it'll be fun once it's finished and it's a completed project.
Huh. What's the next project that comes out for you?
So I do have another project, and that I'm very excited about. It's called Maple's Great Escape, and I am
Okay.
so excited. So it's actually loosely based on a true story. So about a year ago, my co-teacher and I, she's amazing. She always has like these creative ideas to kind of bring like just fun things to life in our classroom. And she wanted to get chicks, like little eggs, and incubate them. Like we got an
Yeah.
incubator, and so she brought the incubator to school, and she somehow we got chicks into the incubator. I know from a place, and I can't remember if she got him online or from a person. I honestly can't remember, but she was successfully able to kind of get them, you know, fully grown in the incubator. And once they hatched, we were able to actually have like I think like five chicks in the class, five or four,
Okay.
four. Yeah, and they were okay, and all was well, you know. And the my students like they loved it. The kids were excited. Everything was great, and until it wasn't.
Uh-oh. What happened?
um, one of them got lost because we had him like in like this little container. And in the container, we had like a canister of food for them, and we had a canister of water. And yeah, like one morning she comes up to me and she's like, "Hey, like one of the chicks is lost and we cannot find this chick." So I'm like, "What?" And I mean, once the kids came into the class, they noticed that there was a chick missing from, you know, our little container that we had. And they were like, you know, like, where's this baby chick? Where's the baby chick? And they were asking her, they were asking me. I mean, honestly, it was a huge mystery, like to everybody, like the whole school got wind of it. And
Nice.
it was a big deal. Okay. It was a big deal. We felt like we were like, wow, we're like the talk of the town. So that happened, and we kept looking. At the end of the day, we finally found the chick. And unfortunately, it was under the water canister. So I don't know how it managed to go underneath the water canister, but it did, and it got crushed. So
Oh,
he did not survive, obviously, for
yeah.
obvious reasons. But I mean, on a on a good note, I feel like I'm not gonna do that in my children's book. Obviously, I'm gonna. I mean, how morbid would that be, right? But I feel like I'm gonna obviously give it more of a happy ending than it deserves. So.
So the story is about a chick?
Yes. So
Okay.
Maple's Great. Yes. So going back to your question, yes, Maple's Great Escape is the name of my new book, and it's basically about a chick named Maple who gets lost in school, and yeah,
Nice.
it's a whole adventure.
When does that come out?
Hopefully, sometime next year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Huh.
I'm excited. Really pumped.
So when it was happening, how soon after the event happened did you
Yes.
think this might be a good story?
Immediately.
Yeah.
I even told like my co-teacher like right away. I was like, I think I'm gonna write a book on this. And she was
Yeah.
like, oh my gosh. She's like, yeah, you totally can.
Wow.
So
That's
yeah.
fun.
Yeah.
What were the students' reactions when they learned about
We
where it was and
we did not tell them where it was. We were just kind
okay.
of like, oh, like, you know, it got lost. Like we just kind of didn't give them an explanation. And they're in pre-K, so they're not really
Okay.
like, you know, like super aware, I guess.
Yeah.
And we're totally okay with that. Like we were like, yeah, we don't need to
Wow.
we don't need to tell them.
Huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, probably not. Probably don't
Yeah.
need to tell them.
Yeah, no, I felt terrible. I mean, she did too. We did, poor thing. But honestly, we were just like, like we cannot obviously sit here and explain this to 3 and 4 year olds. So yeah.
Yeah, that reminds me of a story. My grandma, she doesn't eat chicken anymore because when she was a little girl, she helped raise the chickens
Yeah.
and and help slaughter them. And
Oh,
not quite the same story, but um similar characters, I
yeah,
suppose.
yeah, yeah.
There's this chick called Stumpy, and its feet, one of its feet got cut off. So it would walk around with like this stump, and it would follow my
Mm,
grandpa around on all the tractors and stuff, like a
yeah.
dog.
Yeah.
And so that was like a character as well.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny.
Huh. So you got quite a few projects in the queue.
I do. Yeah. And I'm really excited. I mean, I know that the novel is obviously going to take quite a long time. I mean, I still have a long way to go with it. But my two children's books that I do want to release within the next year or so, those are for sure what's most exciting, I guess, and what's more around the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How long were the biographies that you wrote?
The biography was only like 4 chapters. It was very, very short. It
Oh, so it
wasn't
was like a
a
mini one, like you said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, it was a mini short story biography. And it was great. I mean, like I said, we had fun with it. I got to interview, a business owner. I got to ask her about like her life. She was from Germany, so it was really cool just getting to know her and getting to know her business. And she told me about like, like her like love story with like her first husband and her second husband. It was awesome. It was just so interesting to hear her story.
Yeah. It is. What what kind of stories do you either are you reading or like watching with films or
Yeah.
TV? Like what
Mystery.
is your consumption kind of like?
Mystery and true crime.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Are these
I
books or are they TV shows or
both I mean, even podcasts, like I
podcasts?
love,
So
yeah,
everything.
everything. Like I just love to consume true crime. Like I'm just into it. It's strange. I mean, it's not, I wouldn't say it's like strange, but I've always liked also like horror films since I was a kid.
Okay.
Um, Yeah, I would always like I'd be so proud to tell my family like, "Oh yeah, I saw, I saw it or I finished reading
Yeah.
it." In the 8th grade and my mom would always be like, "Stop being weird." Like, "Don't say that." Like, don't tell your uncle that at Christmas." But but it was just really it always caught my attention. So,
What is your favorite horror film?
it that's why I referenced
That's
it.
what you, yeah.
Yeah, I love Stephen King. I love anything like Pet Cemetery is a good one. He has so many. Cheryl's Game. He has a few that I'm like, yeah, those are it.
Have you now are you talking movies or books?
Both. Both. I love also Misery by Stephen King. And I love more the film versus the book. And then with it, I love the book a lot more than I do the film. I mean, the actors are great and it has a great cast, but definitely love the book a lot more than I do the film. I mean,
That's a
I feel like,
thick book.
yeah, yeah, I had a hit when I was in 8th grade. My uncle gifted it to me behind my mom's back. Like he was like, "I'm gonna gift it to you. I'm not gonna let her know that I gave it to you. You could read it on your own time." It took me about 4 months or so to finish it. And I would say that's actually kind of quick
It's very quick.
considering the fact that I was kind of like, hiding it from my mom and reading it on my
Yeah.
own, pace. And but yeah, I finished it and then I was like kind of bragging to everybody like I finished it.
I finished it.
And they were
Huh.
like, "You finished what?" Because of course there were some kids that were not into that in the 8th grade. They were just kind of like, "Okay," but I was like, "It's amazing, it's cool, and it's awesome." So
What other Stephen King books have you read?
I've read Misery. I've
Okay.
read Pet Cemetery, Gerald's Game. There is another one, Christine. That's a good one as well.
Okay.
I would say that's about it on him. But those are like my favorite.
Huh.
Yeah.
I've only read one Stephen King book,
Oh.
and it was Stephen King on writing.
Oh,
So
okay.
it was the book he wrote about writing.
Right.
And I after I read that, I was like, oh, I know how to write now.
He
It was
just gave you
very
all the he gave you all the tools.
well, it's funny you say that word because he uses that quite a bit, like toolbox.
Yeah.
It's like writing, you want to use your own experiences, you want to use your own words that you use.
Right.
And he's so anti adverbs.
I
So
know.
he's like, just no adverbs, no adverbs, no adverbs. That's lazy. That's blah 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 blah.
Yeah.
But he says like I think his writing process is like he drinks coffee, smokes cigarettes, and he mainly writes in the mornings until the afternoon. And he says it takes him about 3 months to write a book.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's incredible. It's taken me, like I said, almost 5 years to finish my novel. So I'm like, that is just awesome. 3 months.
You should try the outline.
I
That
should. Yeah, no, I should. How long has it taken you? Like, have you, you're writing a novel, you said as well, like a fiction novel or
so this is the third iteration of it.
Oh, okay.
Um, the first one was when COVID happened. I was like, all right, this is time to write. So I started going away at it, and I probably got about 8,000 words. And then I had this realization, like I should be out experiencing the world more. This is like the most unique time in everyone who's living's like lifetime, like this
Right.
shared experience. Um, so I started hanging out more and then having different experiences so that when the second iteration came around, which was 2022, it was a pretty much like a different book,
Yeah.
but the source material was kind of all the same. So it was like a lot of the source material and experiences I had living in Chicago. Um, and then that went on hold for a different circumstance. And then now I'm going back at it. And now it's this is it. I had like a firmer outline and I'm 20,000 words in, I would say.
Okay. Yeah.
And yeah, that's what I enjoy doing most, I would say. I like the podcast, but then like there's all the other stuff with the podcast, with the editing and the production and stuff.
Yeah.
And sometimes I just want to sit and write, you
Yeah.
know?
It's awesome. No, I mean, I get it. I love writing too, so I get it. Yeah.
You journal at all?
Sometimes. Yeah. I mean, it's I feel like it's weird. I feel like journaling helps me more with my anxiety more than anything else.
Mm,
Um, it doesn't and it's just, like my thoughts here and there, like that I just like jot down. Now like with like me, like my laptop, like when I'm like full on writing, I that's just a whole other, deal. But
huh.
yeah.
So I did this thing for my godson. it was recently his second birthday. And
Oh,
so what I've done is on his first birthday and his last one, I write a letter to him.
oh, I
And
love that.
then but it's sealed and he can't open them till his 18th birthday. So then every year he'll have letters like on his birthday of all the years leading up to 18.
Oh, I love that. That is such an awesome idea.
Yeah, I got it from a friend.
That is so
So
cool.
it's a different mindset when you're writing that too, because
Yeah.
you're writing about this 2-year-old,
Yeah.
but he's going to be 18 when he reads this, you know?
Right,
It's
right, right.
kind of interesting.
Yeah. That is pretty interesting, actually. I'm like, I feel like I could probably do that for my daughter too. I'm like, that'd be really cool to kind of
Yeah,
start
it's
using
probably
that for.
applicable to, well, anybody
Yeah.
and anything.
Yeah.
Do you ever think about how writing letters to people used to that was it? Like, and that
Yeah.
was the norm, and you would take your time and write to people,
Yeah.
correspond, and
I think about
it's like
that all the time.
non-existent now.
I know. And it makes me so sad. But at the same time, I'm like, oh my gosh, like, can you imagine like sending a letter to somebody and then like they wouldn't hear from you until like a week later or so? And
Yeah.
then vice versa, and gosh, that's just, we've come a long way with technology.
But I feel like so I do write letters to some people, not as much as I would like. I have like a weekly goal
Yeah.
that I consistently do not hit. 3 letters per week. I've been getting better at one a week. I was like, I'm gonna start there again.
Yeah. That's a good start.
But what I've noticed is that people pay attention when you write a letter.
Yeah.
Whereas like texting is so like anybody can do it. It takes such little time. Um, and it almost becomes kind of cheap in a way.
Right.
Whereas like if you really want someone's attention, um, write a letter because it
Yes.
takes effort, you know? And when
That's
you're
true.
writing the letter, it's
Right.
it's
No,
like yeah, it's
that makes sense.
laborious.
Yes, that's true. That's true. Versus just sending like a text. Like, that's true. It's something more like heartfelt, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you blog at all?
No, no. I thought about it a couple years ago. I was like, oh, it'd be interesting to kind of start my own, blog. But before doing Instagram or anything like that, I was like, yeah, it'd be interesting to kind of just play around with it because I have a cousin who's really creative and she likes to like, I don't know, she's really like neat when it comes to like designing like Pinterest boards and stuff like that. I'm not sure if
Oh
you're
yeah.
familiar with Pinterest, but
Hmm.
she has a good eye for that. She is a designer for a company and she's always kind of like doing that. And so she mentioned like, oh, maybe I could start a blog, it'd be fun to kind of do that. And I thought about it. I was like, yeah, maybe I could do that too. And then I was like, yeah, I don't think I have the energy for that.
Now,
Like,
when you think of blog, like what comes to your mind?
I thought like about like posting like pictures and kind of writing about like your daily life and like, oh, like I'm drinking, this cup of coffee and this is why I'm drinking it. And I thought about doing that, but I was like, no, like it's just something that doesn't really call my attention, I guess.
Yeah. Is that what
But
Instagram is? Is Instagram just a visual blog or?
I feel like it kind of is in a way. I don't know. It just doesn't take as much time for me, I guess. Although it might look like it does. It doesn't. I kind of just like post and now lately I've just been posting like random pictures and things like that. Like I'm not posting anything like before I would go looking for like a spot to take a picture with like my photographer and be like, we're
Oh
gonna
yeah.
go, we're gonna look and we're gonna take these great pictures and it's gonna be awesome. And now I'm like, I could just take a selfie. So I don't know. I'm like I've kind of come to the point where I'm like, if people are gonna like me for me, then awesome, so be it. But I'm telling you,
Yeah.
motherhood has changed my outlook on everything. like everything.
Yeah, I could imagine. So
Yeah,
social media seems really
more laid back, I feel.
superficial.
Yeah, like I'm just more like, yeah, I guess so. Because now I see influencers and things like that, like trying to kind of achieve what I was trying to achieve a couple years back. And I'm just like, well, I'm like, that's just not that important to me anymore. Like,
Yeah.
like it's more important to be able to spend a Friday night with my kids and focus on that versus and don't get
Mhm.
me wrong, I mean, I'll still be on Instagram posting here and there and like on my stories, things like that. But now instead of focusing to go look for a spot to take a picture or something like that for a post, I'm focused more on like my next like my next thought like what am I going to do with my next book like how can I tweak my next book, how can I fix this, how can I go back to this chapter and fix that, how can I spend more time with my daughter and so forth, but not Instagram. That's not the first thing that comes
Yeah.
into mind.
I feel like it can get to be like a messy thing, social
Oh yeah,
media in general, where it's like it's not the point of
right,
what you're doing. It's like to promote or market that. I find that with I don't know, maybe like YouTube for me. And then I have moments where I'm like, when was the last time I wrote? Like, why why is this other stuff getting in the way? It
right,
needs to be
right,
more habitual.
yeah,
And so then like correcting that and yeah, it can like divert you from the
absolutely,
original intent, you know?
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
I agree 100%. It's very, very just kind of surface of people's lives. It's not anything crazy or anything like that. And
And it's
I don't
only
know.
an image of that life too.
That, yeah, and that too. And I feel like just people try to kind of like pose as something that they're not sometimes. And,
Yeah.
you know,
Huh. Well, we're coming up on time
yeah.
here pretty soon. I do have a couple last questions for you. What's a song you've been listening to on repeat recently?
So one of my favorite artists is Dayglow. I'm not sure if you've heard of him. He's like an indie pop artist. And
I
it's,
know, I know,
oh, I feel like my cat, you can probably hear
I
my
know
cat.
the song.
Oh, you do?
Like, there's a song.
Sorry if you could hear my cat, by
Yeah.
the way. He's in the background.
Oh, you're good. I think it's Close to You or Hot
Yeah,
Rod.
yeah, that I love those two as well. But
Okay.
my favorite song is "Can I Call You Tonight" by Dayglow. You
Oh,
should
okay.
listen. You
Yeah.
should listen to it. I always try to get everyone hooked on Dayglow. Like, "Can I Call You Tonight?" That one is amazing. I love that song. And like I said, he's an indie pop artist. He's great. I also listen to a little bit of like Saint Motel. I don't know if you've heard of Saint Motel, but they're pretty cool too. They're also an indie pop band.
So are these like your favorite
Yeah.
ones or just recent
Well,
songs?
I feel like recently I've been listening
Okay.
more to like those two artists. Um, it's actually funny because I feel like the last time that you asked me what song I was listening to, it was completely different than this song.
What was it?
It was
Can you remember?
Eminem.
Oh wow.
I mean, I still love Eminem,
Yeah.
but I haven't been listening to him lately. So, yeah.
I've uh I've been bummed out the last 2 days. One of my
Why?
favorite bands, L'Impetrice, it's like this French pop band.
Okay. Yeah.
Their lead singer is leaving.
Oh no.
I was like so looking forward to the tour and checking that out.
Oh. Mm.
Been like in a like an actual like physical like slump in a way. Like just kind of like a
Oh no.
malaise.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
Isn't that interesting how big of a connection we have with music?
Yeah, 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 yeah. And I
Huh.
get it. I totally get it. I think I'd be pretty bummed if one of my favorite artists was like, I'm not making music anymore, like calling it quits.
Well, I
Um,
think she's exploring other artistic
Yeah, yeah.
interest, and they'll
Yeah.
move on with another singer.
Oh, okay.
Just yeah, it's just interesting. Um,
Yeah.
what's something you're curious about recently?
I'm curious. So it's interesting that you say that because I I mentioned earlier how I'm really fascinated by like the Italian culture. And I
Yeah,
am so curious to learn a new language. And I really want to learn how to speak Italian.
Italian.
Yeah, once again, I have no Italian connection or anything like that. I want to learn how to speak the language. So, I've heard that it's really similar to Spanish, which I'm able to speak Spanish. So, it's just one of those things where I'm like, okay, like it'd be easy for me to pick up on. So,
How similar is it to like if you memorize what certain words are
yeah,
in Italian, do you use the same structure
I
to
would think
speak or
I would think so. I'm not quite 100% sure on that, but like I know that some of their words are only off by like a letter. Like in
yeah.
Spanish, you would call like your aunt tia, and I think like in Italian it's zia. So it's like literally by like a word,
Yeah.
like a letter.
Huh.
Um, yeah. So I just think that's really interesting. And I'm like, I could totally pick that up if I really actually sat down and focused on learning a new language. Like I could totally do that.
Yeah.
So
Okay, last question. What are you energized for in the next 6 months or so?
I would say for sure to publish my newest book, Maple's Great Escape. I'm excited for that. I'm energized for that. I mean, I'm also energized for my kids,
Yeah.
but most pumped about my book launching this next year, hopefully, fingers crossed.
Huh. That's
Mm.
awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks for coming back on the show. This has been an enjoyable
It's
conversation.
it's been awesome. No, thank you for having me. It's been great.